Think most of us got high hopes for MIDI tools in life. And if that's not your dreams coming true, then better lower your expectations. Jokes aside, there are dozens of generators and transformers promising you infinite melodies, ideas and chord progressions, but they all share the same problem. Let's start with my least favorite option. Generators can be unpredictable, buggy, but also no different than you slamming the keys or pads with scale log on. On the other hand, they can give you algorithmic bleeps and blops, which is not really that cool unless you start using them the right way. Meridian is not a MIDI clip tool, but it falls into generative category. Just to not give you a lecture on Euclidean sequences,
what language is that?
Just think of it as your unique and fancy rhythm and melody generator. Yeah. Okay, but let's start from scratch. You have an option to generate 4 different patterns with how many notes you like, or in fact, it's called events here. Then I can determine the amount of notes that will be played in the sequence once we add a second note to it. It already starts to output some cool rhythms. We can also rotate, or rather move the sequence left and right. Let's add a third pattern, and in this case, let's decrease the amount of steps. So let's just say we're gonna have only 5 steps. Now 2 events. I think it's much better with shorter decay time. But its true power comes from jam or randomization features. Let's for now choose the jam option for the first pattern. Then we can obviously do it for a bunch of different patterns or even all of them. But you can also randomize notes. So it basically skips this note knob, and here you can actually determine the amount of shifting between different notes inside this pattern. Unfortunately, it doesn't have scale awareness feature, I believe, yet, since Ian is still working on updates for Meridian, but the workaround for that is to obviously create some racks or just simply put scale device after Meridian. But I get it, this MIDI effect workflow may not be your cup of tea, and that's where this simple polyrhythm tool comes into play. Now once again, I'm not qualified enough to show you the differences between different music math algorithm, but luckily this one has Euclidean algorithm, so we can stay on the same page. The first difference is that it's scale aware, but you need to put the root note to the note it's actually inside your scale, so let's bring it up to D#3, and now we can start generating patterns. So let's put the density up of our root note. I believe we can have it simple like that. Let's switch this first scale degree to 7th and then generate the pattern. Now it's the same, but once I decrease the length, the variation slider basically works like rotate inside Meridian. But with generators comes this weird bug I mentioned before, and I have no idea if that's the case with Max for Live tools or Live Alone, and if you experience the same one, just let me know. But whenever I click onto another MIDI clip, for example, see? It actually disappears. Sometimes it generates the patterns from the MIDI tool I used before clicking on different clip. A quick solution for that is just to press off this auto button whenever you're ready with the pattern and you're happy with it, or basically grow up and start committing to audio. Next, there is a wide range of generators from MIDI to the max. I covered them in my previous videos, but just so you know, you can create chords and progressions either by typing them or by using the built-in library. Thing is that the Transform tool he recently released eats all of those generators for breakfast. But more on that later. An honorable mention goes to MDD Snake Generator, which is basically a famous MIDI device turned into the generator. But to be fair with you, I got it not so long ago, and while it can give you some ideas by just for example, shuffling different gates and then shuffling different notes, those generated melodies need a lot of work to do to turn them into something different than a pure in-scale randomness. And that's actually my main problem with MIDI generators. By the time you get to know what each one does and how to use each parameter, a random 14-year-old FL Studio producer will make 3 beats, post them on BeatStars, and probably land a lucrative placement. Long story short, it's better to have even the simplest idea possible and turn it into something different with transform tools. Unlike stock generators, transformers are much more useful, but I'm pretty sure I covered a bunch of them already, so let's address some elephants in the room. I like to spread them into 2 categories: utility devices and let's collab bro ones. But before I get into the ultimate one, let's talk about tiny yet useful stuff.
That's what. If you say that's what she said one more time, I'm gonna pop you.
You're gonna laugh at me showing this next device, but believe me, it's such a useful tool. So here I have this bass line from the preset I made on my Mini Freak. Turn the cutoff a little bit up. That's better and probably more audible. Anyways, once I will switch mutator on, not activate the mutator, and use the chance. So yeah, its main purpose is just to mute some notes, but in fact you can come up with some cool patterns like that. Let's mute, or rather transform one more time. And a little bit more complex device, which falls into this collab bro category, is called Inebriator, and it basically allows you to shift pitches of notes. So let's just stick to shifting by 3 semitones and then the chance. The improved version of Inebriator is called Intershift. So here you have more options to transform your notes. So let's just stick to 7 plus and 7 minus. And by the way, just remember that you don't actually need to transform the whole melody. You can just highlight the part you want to transform like that and then hit transform. So only this part will be transformed. But now let's address some of the biggest elephants, or rather mammoths, in the room. And the first is called commands by MIDI to the Max. By clicking on the note and pressing transform, you can generate chords.
No shit.
No shit.
As you can see, I have 7th, but let's just use this and then root position. So it basically generated a basic major chord for me. Now, you can generate minor chords, dominant ones, diminished, augmented, sustained, basically all the chords you will ever need. We can generate different inversions as well. But I think I like it in a root position, and obviously then just add root notes an octave below, or above, or both. Now let's say I will want to generate some melodies, or rather bass from that. So you can convert the highest notes, the median, and lowest then by velocity, chance at random. And it works like that. So once I will click lowest, then convert, it gave me only the bassline part. Let's undo that. And if I want to have, like, for example, a melody or something like that, let's click convert once again, while switching to highest. Pretty damn cool if you ask me. Second elephant in the room is called Phase Shuffler Pro. And to make this thing right, I actually used this break and transformed it into a MIDI section. So it's basically the same but sliced. Once we get into this MIDI clip and choose Phase Shuffler Pro, now it plays the original, but once I start to change some slices here, let's just choose a faster interval. Now we are talking breaks. So I believe Philip Mayer, in collaboration with NetRush, done this device to play with drum breaks originally. and in fact you can make some cool drum fills with it as well, but I think a cool idea is to use it on vocal chops. And I already showed you a couple of techniques for vocal chops in one of my previous videos.